Welcome everybody. This is our first Thursday club for June. I'm Sarah Harmer and I'm one of the Associate Directors at RSK Biocensus. Today's topic is around underrepresented groups in ecology, and we'll be joined by a group of panellists who are going to share some personal insights and their experiences. And for this important topic, I'm very pleased to be joined by Yashni Bithlani, who's the Training and Events Intern at Mammal Society. She's studying ecology and conservation at the University of East Anglia. First of all, I'm going to just do a little bit of housekeeping. Could you click onto that slide, Yashni? Thank you. So your microphones will be muted throughout the talk, but you can ask questions through the question box that's on your screen. Please do so because there'll be time at the end for some questions and answers. If you've attended these sessions before, you'll know that shortly after the end of today's session, you'll be sent a short questionnaire. And if you do have a few minutes to provide some feedback, we would really appreciate it. It helps us to understand what works and what doesn't, and what you'd like to see in the future for our first Thursday Club presentations. So now I'm going to hand over to Yashni, who's going to introduce our panellists.
Thanks, Sarah. So is that slide changed? So just a quick introduction to the Mammal Society for those of you who might not know. We're a conservation charity that strive for a future in which sustainable mammal populations can thrive across the British Isles and Ireland. And we're very passionate about this topic, so it's great to be running it in collaboration with RSK. Thanks to our wonderful speakers and everyone that's helped to bring this event together, and of course to everyone joining us today. So I'll ask our speakers to introduce themselves. Feroza, would you like to go first?
Hello, my name's Feroza. I currently work for the Surrey Wildlife Trust as an engagement officer. So I work with schools and directly in school communities to try and restore nature and also help restore a little bit of nature connection in the students. And I also run the youth engagement program here. Alongside that, I'm also very lucky to be a trustee of the Mammal Society as well.
Thank you. Abby, would you like to go?
Yes, I'm Abby Onenchan. I'm an associate professor within the School of Environmental Science. And I also have many other hats. I am the placement director within the same school, and I'm also the foundation year director, mainly for the young students who haven't really made it to the general degree and they have to finish 1 year. And then finally, I think I have a role as a widening participation academic lead, whereby I help people who are underrepresented to be able to join the School of Environmental Science. Within my role, I would say I do many things, but I think the most critical is I do teach and I also do research. Thank you.
Thank you. Emma, I'll pass over to you.
Hello, I'm Emma Onajekwe. So I'm actually a registered veterinary nurse who's looking to diversify my career into wildlife conservation. So at the moment I'm working on like a freelance basis in doing bat survey work and also working with a rewilding and engagement officer. I'm really passionate about citizen science surveys and trying to get my local community engaged with that. And I won the Mammal Champion Award with the Mammal Society this year.
Thank you. And Alan.
Everyone, I'm Alan. I work for RSK Biocensus as a consultant ecologist. We play an important role in the the planning and development process. So we undertake a wide range of surveys, assess the sites important for habitats and a range of protected species, and we help ensure the client remains compliant with wildlife legislation. And I'm also a member of the SAIEM Early Careers Special Interest Group.
Thank you. I'll pass over to Sarah now.
So first of all, we'd like to know a little bit about your experience from each of you. What drew you into ecology, how your journey has progressed, and particularly any barriers or setbacks that you might have faced. So let's start with Emma, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. So as I said, I'm a registered veterinary nurse, so I do kind of feel like I'm not quite in that space, wildlife conservation space yet, although I do some, like I said, freelance work. But in the veterinary profession, this underrepresented groups is also kind of an issue, with only about 3.5% of veterinary professionals from an ethnic background, and with veterinary nurses, it's even less. It's about 1.5%, I think, percent. So I kind of can draw on those experiences that I've kind of had. I mean, growing up, you know, going to school, I was kind of told that I wasn't smart enough. I always wanted to be a vet, but I was told by my school, you know, you're not smart enough. So I kind of went down the graphic design route, but knew that working with animals was something that I really wanted to do. So then I went down veterinary nursing. That was kind of just, I met someone that worked as a vet nurse, and then that's how I found out about it. But I've been doing that for 7 years now, and I realized that wildlife was always my passion. And originally I thought wildlife nursing would be a good fit, but I've realized that I want to help wildlife before it's kind of, you know, in a hospital setting. And I'm really passionate about kind of community engagement and getting people that maybe don't have, you know, they're, you know, gone to university, who've got degrees, because I don't myself, and how we can connect people with nature. So that's kind of, my kind of experience that I've had. But I have felt now, obviously, transitioning from a vet nurse to wildlife conservation, like I said, I don't have a degree, and I'm finding it slightly difficult. Obviously, I have loads of kind of transferable skills that I can use, but you know, when applying for jobs, a lot of the time they want you to have a degree in a relevant kind of field, which I don't. Luckily, I am starting to see more things saying like, if you have relevant experience, and I do have a lot of voluntary experience. I've done loads of volunteering to try and get my foot in the door. But sometimes I do feel like, you know, from the application side of things, people probably just discard my application because I don't have that experience or degree. That's how I feel personally, because a lot of things I've applied for recently, I don't even get an interview, which makes it quite, you know, disheartening when I know that I'm very passionate. Like I said, I've won the Mammal Champion Award, I've won the Civic Pride Award in my local area for all the voluntary stuff I've been doing. But it's like, how do you then, you know, get your foot in the door if you don't have some of the experience or essential skills that they want you to have?
Yeah, I think that's very true. It's that experience element, and then how do you get the experience without having the experience? It's a bit of a tricky one. Yeah, brilliant. Do Alan, would you like to kind of tell us how you ended up in ecology, and how you got some of that experience?
Yeah, so actually growing up, I had next to no interest in ecology, strangely enough, possibly due to growing in London with very limited access to parks or nature reserves. And also ecology is not seen as a common industry to go into for people of my background. But kind of, I guess, fast forward to the COVID era, where because mental health was a really big issue during lockdown, volunteering for my local wildlife trust as a volunteer was what helped me during that time. And I met loads of wonderful volunteers, learned a lot about wildlife I never knew about, didn't know bats existed, and now I'm a bat ecologist. So it really did spark kind of a lasting interest in me. The trust also kind of ran a 4-month paid traineeship, which specifically targeted people from underrepresented groups such as myself. And it was a very kind of transformative experience because I was able to kind of dip my toes into all the different kind of avenues. So, you know, environmental education, habitat monitoring, practical reserve management, but also running public events. And it was a very kind of important stepping stone for me. It allowed me to explore my interests in a charity where ethnic diversity was a priority, and I felt very supported along the way. And that's what gave me the encouragement to pursue a career in consultancy. I then undertook a master's degree in species identification and service skills, which is a program run at the University of Reading, which included a 6-month placement at RSK Biocensus. And fast forward 3 years, I'm traveling across the country, managing projects, and taking a wide range of interesting wildlife surveys. So yeah, crazy to think that 5 years ago I didn't know anything about nature, and now it's basically all I do. In terms of barriers, I completely agree with Emma about kind of lack of opportunity to experience. I think there's lots of, it's quite an exclusive industry in a way, because you need, for consultancy at least, I mean, in most requirements, they require you to have access to a car, a full UK driver's license, which you need to pay for lessons for. You need possibly a few years of volunteering or seasonal work for not amazing pay as well. And these requirements can kind of act as a filter for some groups, particularly those from kind of lower income backgrounds, who are definitely disproportionately represented among some groups in the UK. So I think breaking down some of those barriers is quite important for encouraging more diversity in the industry. But also, obviously, the feeling of not belonging is also quite a common feeling, I think.
Yeah. So was it COVID specifically that gave you that space to be able to go out and find out that these jobs and this whole sector existed, really?
Yeah, in hindsight, I think the lockdown thing was a blessing in disguise for me, because I don't think I would have ever discovered kind of, I would have never known about ecology careers without it, I think. So
So for me, again, the lockdown, you didn't have places you could go. Before I was doing veterinary, like volunteering in different countries, and then it made me focus on British wildlife, and then what was going on with the community in my area, and different citizen science surveys I could take part in, and that's where kind of it sparked for me as well.
Yeah, it's sort of the first time you hear about that. There's a lot of ecology and conservation projects that you hear about internationally, like rescuing turtles and saving kind of iconic species, and you don't realize often, if you haven't been exposed to it, that there is a whole industry around UK ecology. Yeah, really interesting. Abby, would you like to tell us about your experience?
Yeah, so my journey is very different in that I started off as a lawyer, and I started realizing, even though I did different kinds of law, I was more interested in environmental law. So after I finished, I pushed myself towards environmental law. But then I didn't get into environmental law. I actually got into environment in general and sustainability. And that's how I got into ecology. And I got, based on the work that I did, because I used to work, I worked before I did my PhD. It was mainly ecology based. So I used to walk around rivers. And I think one of the biggest jobs I had was where I worked with the Nile Basin around the river. And, the ecological aspects of it are very huge. And it crosses 11 countries. So that gave me a lot of experience, just being able to work within that space. Finally, I think when I was within this job, I realized, I need to do a PhD, because there's so much I didn't know that I needed to maybe learn more. So I went to Delft University of Technology, where I did my PhD. And then afterwards, I worked there. And then after the working there for a while is when I came here. And I would say maybe the most difficult thing maybe I had was actually being able to progress from working there to be able to come and maybe become an associate professor, because then I was working as a researcher. I didn't have a lot of experience in teaching, and it was really a long jump to be able to make that, to do that. And it took a lot of convincing myself, because I think the internal wall is usually even more stronger than the external barriers that you face. Convincing myself that I can do this and I should do this and I should apply and I'm entitled to this like anyone else. Because I used to see people who are younger than me, they come, they finish their PhD, even before they finish, they get an assistant professor position, and I'm still there and I'm thinking, what could be wrong here, you know? And maybe sometimes it's a language barrier where they say, oh, we need someone who speaks the language, or it's something else. But finally, I told myself I have to try and I have to keep on trying. And then finally, I did get through. So yeah, so I think that's my experience in a nutshell.
Thank you. It's interesting, those internal barriers that looking back, you see, oh yeah, actually, you know, the internal barriers, I just need to kind
Yeah,
of,
it's
you know,
really healthy, especially like, let's say if you've made many applications and maybe you didn't go through. So you keep on telling yourself, oh, you know, maybe I shouldn't. But then I saw so many applications which I left, which I could have gotten because of this internal struggle that I was having. And it took quite a while. And I would actually, to be very honest, what happened was I applied for a scholarship. And that scholarship, when the review came from the panel, obviously I didn't make it, but when the review came from the panel, it was so, how do I say, negative in such a way that it actually woke me from my sleep, and I said, I really have to wake up and I have to make this difference. I have to change this because, I mean, they kept on saying, oh, you've been in this position for so long and you haven't moved to the next position, that there's something wrong. And yet they didn't really understand there were other barriers that were stopping me, like maybe it could be language or maybe where you come from. But then finally, I told myself, I can't be using this as an excuse. I have to make a difference. Yeah, but the internal struggle was difficult, really difficult.
Yeah. I could see you nodding along with that, Emma. Oh, no, sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think it is. You have a lot of internal, pressures in yourself, or sometimes you feel like if you're showing up in certain spaces, you're also representing everyone else from that group. So you feel like you have to, stand up for everyone and be a certain way. And it's a lot to kind of take. And like you said, when you're applying for a job, you look at it, you think, oh, I don't have those skills, but I know that I'm passionate. I know that if I'm in that job, that I will learn, I will work really hard. But how do you show that when you might not have that degree or a certain experience that they're asking for?
Yeah, that's true. Feroza, would you like to join in and tell us about your experience?
Yes, I'm quite similar to Alan. I grew up in London and I really didn't have a lot of access to nature. It wasn't something that I did. I didn't really go on walks. I didn't like look at the birds. It just felt really disconnected from it. And I think I didn't really know that that was a thing. I didn't know that like you can touch grass, like, and it helps your mental health or whatever. I kind of went to uni and I chose biology as my undergraduate on kind of a whim because I was like sort of interested in it, and it seemed broad enough where I could maybe then figure out a career based on whatever I learned in my degree. But when I started my degree, I really enjoyed ecology modules. I found them so interesting, learning about animals and plants and ecosystems. I just found it really fascinating. It was the first time I felt like I was actually learning something that interested me, and it was just like this magical new world opened up. So then I tried my best to get everyone always said get more experience when you're at uni, so I did the FSC Young Darwin Scholarship, and that was based in different parks in London, and it was the first time I had gone to a park and like actually engaged with the nature in like a really specific, like actually looking at what was there, and that was really important to me. And then I did a master's in ecology and conservation, ecology, evolution and conservation. And then, yeah, I kind of graduated, and similar to what everyone said, I just didn't know how to get a job. I didn't know what the careers actually were. I knew I wanted to do something green, but no one really had told me that you could be an ecologist or you could be an engagement officer or you could work in rewilding. But I was really lucky that when I finished my master's, the New to Nature program was happening, which was over 90 paid entry-level placements in environmental charities across the UK. And I applied to a couple to it, and I got a placement at WWF as a wild owls officer. So that was a year-long placement. And I learnt loads about community engagement and campaigning and education. And then I was lucky to be offered a permanent contract to stay there for a few more years. And then I recently have moved over to Surrey Wildlife Trust, and I'm now in the education team. So it was like a little bit of like I don't really know what I was doing, and I was really lucky to be around when opportunities were there, and people have started investing a little bit more in entry level roles, and I was able to grab one of those. But yeah.
That's really interesting. A lot of what you've all said is to do with kind of seeing an opportunity and giving it a go, and then that opening up your knowledge and your experience and going, oh, okay, well, this is the thing. Maybe I can do more of that. Really, really interesting. Brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to hand back over to Yashni to move things forwards.
Thank you. It's really interesting to hear everyone's different perspectives, but how there's so many similar barriers. I think we will move ahead to the change you'd like to see going forward. So what do you think needs to change to make ecology more of an inclusive sector? And do you think there is anything that organisations or people could realistically start doing now to help that accessibility? Would anyone like to go first, or shall I?
I'll go first. I think there's, as we kind of touched on, like different kind of routes to entry into these kind of fields and into these jobs, and taking, for me personally, because like I said, I changed my career, and Abby as well. Like you said, you changed your career as well, on how other people's experiences of jobs that they've done or education can still be transferable and can still be kind of valid in those spaces, especially when we're looking more at like community jobs. I think it's really important to have, when you have different diverse kind of experiences, skill sets and perspectives, like that can really add and make a difference. So I think, yeah, looking at different ways you can get people into those roles, making it more accessible. So again, that, you know, people feel comfortable and don't feel like, oh no, I'm not smart enough to be like that. I need to be an academic in order to be in that role. And just, yeah, I think the more we kind of talk about this, even though it's, you know, nerve-wracking and uncomfortable, I think it will naturally just you'll start to see change and things, yeah, just naturally kind of happening.
I can jump in. I think like it's really great that we're having conversations around increasing diversity in the sector and trying to talk about that improving, because it's a really obvious thing. If you walk into any room in like any conference or anything, it's really white, and that's just been the case for a really long time. And I know we're just talking about racial diversity really today, but there's obviously all other types of diversity that need to be improved. But like I think it's kind of up to organizations to actually do something about it. Like we spend a lot of time talking about we want more young people in the sector, but are you offering roles that have a livable wage? Are you offering roles that are accessible to young people and you don't need 5 years of experience? If you have recruited someone from a diverse background, have you thought about the things that exist in your organization's culture that might make it difficult? How many microaggressions is a person of color facing in a day? Have you thought about the impact that would have on that person? And I think there's a lot of there's just a real need to kind of do a bit of action, like think about what you're actually offering as an organization. And it's really great to say you want to see it, but unfortunately we're still not seeing it, and a couple of jobs here and there isn't really fixing the problem. There's like thousands of people that want to work in the sector, but they're not being able to do that due to loads of barriers, and we really have to break those down. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And like you said, I think it's about, yeah, seeing the change and seeing things happening. I've seen on a lot of job adverts, you know, they'll have a statement saying encourage people from underrepresented backgrounds, deprived backgrounds, all sorts of statements, which, to be honest, for me, actually puts me off, because I feel like it's just a statement that you're saying to tick the box to say that you're doing that. And if I don't see it within the organization as a whole, it does make me think it's not a genuine thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think having a standard DEI text in your job posting doesn't tell me anything. Yeah, I think the expectation that you still need to do, obviously, like years of volunteering to even get the experience you need is definitely something we need to kind of break down before. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I think even just the idea that underrepresented groups feel like they don't belong is already a problem. We need to remove those barriers that make people feel this is not my home. I don't belong. Maybe it's for certain people, and that can be very difficult, especially if you have like a history whereby maybe certain careers have been seen to be mainly for certain people, and maybe there's also a legacy which has been taken place for so many years. It's very hard to change that, but we need to find ways of really breaking those beliefs and cultures and practices that actually make other people feel like they're outsiders within a place. And just having someone there, like, sometimes when I'm sitting in a panel and interviewing someone who's maybe from an underrepresented group, one student came and told me, "Oh, it was so nice to see you sitting there because I felt at home." So that helps. Maybe some even physical presence helps to break those barriers. Sometimes I think even diversifying the panels, which are hiring people, making sure they're more diverse. Fieldwork is a major thing. We need to make fieldwork more accessible. And not only fieldwork, but also this idea that for ecology, you need to have experience. And some of this experience needs people who have, a strong economic background to be able to do it for volunteer purposes. Maybe that's something that we need to rethink. And also, I think one of the biggest things I think is mentorship. I think mentorship is extremely critical. Personally, I wouldn't have made it where I am if I wasn't mentored. I got a lot of mentoring, and I believe that is something that we really need to build on.
I strongly agree. I think seeing people from ethnic minority groups being in leadership positions gives me confidence that, okay, this career is possible for me. Maybe someday I can kind of get to that stage in my career as well. My perception of the industry historically is quite white, middle class, and for people who are in kind of rural locations. I think other people can relate as well, like attending company events or training events, conferences, feeling like the odd person out in a room of 200 people. So yeah, I think personally, I think RSK Biocensus is really good. I feel really supported, but I think the feeling of not belonging is still going to be there until we kind of actively address it.
And like, there's no reason why people from diverse backgrounds can't have a career in ecology. I think if you're really critical, like, why is it just this certain demographic that can really maybe more easily access a career? There's no reason why everyone should have a green career, right? We need everyone involved in nature recovery, otherwise the climate will just fail and we'll reach ecosystem collapse. And I think it's kind of like, it's a really obvious thing, and it's something that can be fixed, because people can show passion for nature and ecology without needing to have volunteered in Costa Rica and paid £4,000 for that experience. But they can show passion in their own ways. Like Emma's experience is amazing, and that should be enough. Just to and some of the surveying techniques and the species identification, that's things that you can pick up on the job. And if you offer people opportunities, they can show you that the whole thing that they can offer an organization is enough. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like we said, like about just supporting one another, like you said, seeing other people in that space with different experiences. I really love hearing about other people's stories and how they got into that role, because you always think, oh, it's very direct, they went to school, went to university, got this role, and that's that. But really, it's not. Like, I've met so many people that have done very different things and they've used transferable skills, and then it makes you think, okay, there is hope. It doesn't matter that I haven't done that yet, but this might lead to something else. Or like, so I think that's really important to have like mentorships, support systems, and yeah, different routes to access, because that's the way that it will make a difference.
Oh, thank you, everyone. That's really helpful. A lot to think about there. I'll pass to Sarah just to wrap things up before we take questions.
To kind of summarize, it would be really interesting to hear what each of you would give as a kind of piece of advice to others. What kind of message did you have that, you know, particularly made a difference to you, or something that gives you hope? You know, how would you kind of summarize that, and give other people hope for finding a way into ecology? Alan, do you want to go first?
What I find quite hopeful is that more and more of these discussions are being had. It's becoming more of a focus for, you know, SciEM and other organisations like the Mammal Society. So yeah, hopefully it's not going to be addressed overnight. It's going to be a slow process. But I'm hopeful that things will change in the next years.
Yeah. I think that's true. There is more discussion. You know, I've been in the industry for a long time, and there is definitely more discussion, more conversation, and more awareness around the issues that we've been sort of talking about here. Emma, would you like to give your input?
Yeah, so in terms of what gives me hope is that there are people that are actioning for change. There are other people that look like me. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with social media, but I definitely am seeing other people that are, you know, doing amazing things. Someone that lives fairly close by to me, she's doing amazing. She's been on shows, doing loads of things. I think seeing that you're not by yourself. There is loads of people doing great things, and that there is people that are interested in nature from our background. It's not that no one's interested. It's just that we've maybe not had the opportunity or the platform. So yeah, I'd give my advice to anyone is just to keep pushing on. And if you're passionate, you know, that I think it will lead to you finding something, but it can be hard. But yeah, just keep at it.
And that will build the more visibility, like you say, the more we'll build that internal belief that you know you can belong in this community, and help youngsters to feel that there is a place because it's visible. I agree. Rosa, do you want to give us your advice and hope?
I think just keep going. Access for nature is a really interesting term, because the trees aren't stopping you from getting out there, right? They're not the ones saying that we don't want you to work and help nature or ecology. There's space for everyone. There's a role for everyone. They do exist, and there's absolutely no reason for anyone from a diverse background cannot succeed in this sector. And lived experience is so important. If you're like me and you're interested in engagement, I didn't know engagement was a job, and then sort of a few months into my first role, I realized I was really passionate about getting other people like me engaging with nature and supporting communities that were different to the traditional communities that might interact. But that took me being Muslim and running iftar events, or being Punjabi and being able to communicate with the Hindu community in Leicester. That's all things that I was able to bring that someone else might not have been able to. And that's why diversity is such a strength, because we need everyone in the sector. So I think if you ever feel like you don't belong there, or you are the only person in the room and you feel a little bit odd, like the odd one out, just remember that's a massive, amazing part of you, and you being there is so important, and that's what everyone should hold on to, that we all belong.
I agree. Abby, would you like to give some advice to people?
Yes, my advice is your differences are your strength. That's really where your strength is. Sometimes when you get this position, maybe you feel like, oh, you know, maybe I got it, but I don't belong, or maybe I don't feel like I actually qualify or something. But then you don't realize that your strength is actually your difference. The way you're different makes you think differently, you know, brings very unique features, and makes you, you know, it's actually your strength. You shouldn't try to hide it. You should try to, you know, enhance it. And I'll just give you an example, a very short example. 2 weeks ago, I had to teach climate science to primary school children who came to UEA. And the first day I did it, you know, the traditional way. But then it didn't have a lot of impact. But then I thought to myself, what are my strengths? My strengths are actually where I was born, what I come with. And I use that to be able to tell them a story. And then I told them afterwards they'll draw for me a story. And they were so impacted by my difference that their story was when they were drawing the story, they told me, "Thank you so much for changing my life." And I almost really cried thinking about that. So the difference between when I use my difference as my strength and when I try to do it the traditional way, like anyone else, I could feel there was a major difference with that. So it's really important that maybe you think about what are your strengths and don't try to cover them, use them for your benefit.
Yeah, that's really good advice there. Right, so we're kind of got about 10 minutes left. So it would be good to move on to the questions that people are putting into the chat. So I'd just like to say thank you to all of our panelists and to Yashni for sharing those experiences, because it's clearly a very personal thing, and it's really good to hear all of that and to share it with the wider community. So I'm going to hand over to Yashni to go through some of these questions.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just pulling them up. So one, I'm interested to know, to all the panelists, if any of you were made aware of careers whilst you were at school, and if not, what careers were promoted?
Me at school, I mean, I didn't hear about any jobs to do with the environmental sector. I just knew if you wanted to help animals, you'd become a vet, and that's all I heard, and that's kind of why I was trying to go for that. But otherwise, no, I didn't hear about anything else. And I'm based in London, by the way.
Yeah, I was also based in London, and the careers that were promoted were like medicine, engineer, all that. But yeah, I think I'm the only one in my year group who actually went the environmental route in the end as well. But
yeah, me too. Alan, I've finished.
I've also heard there's an ecology apprenticeship scheme that's been developed, and that there's probably more about that. Is it, Sarah?
Yeah, I think the apprenticeship route is going to be much more available.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to Alan. Yeah, like for me, it was the traditional careers, medicine, law. That's how I ended up in law. Then I realized, oh, this is really not where I want to be. I didn't want to be in court. Then I realized there's something called environmental law, and that's how I moved to it. But it took quite a while because this was not promoted in school.
Yeah, I'm the same. I had no idea. I don't think I've even learned the word ecology for like a really long time. So, but like Abby said, there's like you don't have to be an ecologist, or you don't have to spend your whole week in mud to have a green career. You can be an environmental lawyer. You can work in finance and work in green finance. Like there's so many ways to take things into your career, and I think we're doing a lot more around green careers, and we're trying to encourage people. But it's a shame that some of us didn't have that experience at school, but we were still able to find our way there, I guess.
I suppose you also don't even need to know exactly which career path to follow at the age of 18. Some people discover it during university. Some people are career changers much later down in life. So I don't think there needs to be a pressure at A-level stage to know which career you're going to be set for to be doing for life, I guess.
Definitely, thank you. So we've got another one that's come in. So it says, thank you so much to all of you. This is an important topic. You mentioned that the tick box EDI statement on job applications can be off-putting. What else do you look at when applying for jobs? Is it what else the job application says, or what's on the company website, social media, etc.?
I think there's something in the application process as well. Like you can do interviews where the questions are sent beforehand, and that can help people from all sorts of background. That can help you if you're neurodivergent as well. And there's like loads of ways to make an application process a lot better. I think especially in ecology, there can be a lot of steps and a lot of things, and the process can feel quite draining. So even like little things like that can make it a lot easier to go through.
I'd agree. And as well, I look at kind of everything. I'll look on the website, I'll look on the social media, I'll look at the company as a whole. What are they saying in the job description? Sometimes people have like the essential requirements and the desirable things. When I see that, and you see that the essential ones are more, okay, I have all the essential ones. Maybe I don't have the desirable, but I can then talk about my experiences. That helps. Could you think, okay, well, I have the essential things, and hopefully that be enough to put me through.
I think once you also kind of are if you get into the sector, you're also able to kind of speak to other organizations and get to know other organizations that are working in and around you. So that's always really helpful. And again, like mentorship, if you meet someone in an organization, they can also tell you what it's like. And like sometimes I think it's important to be honest about what an organization is like, and the principles and the culture that's there, and that also keeps people safe as well, to be honest. So yeah.
Thank you. That's all really helpful. We've had one final one come in as well. Thanks everyone for important and heartfelt experiences shared today. Where should your messaging be targeted, do you think? More towards schools, social media, careers advice, TV, or anywhere else?
It's a hard one. I think everywhere, if possible, because like we said, it's not just about kids at school trying to figure out what they're going to do for the rest of their life. I mean, I'm 33 and I'm changing my career plan. I thought I was going to be a vet nurse for the whole rest of my life. So I think just having it in like everything and everywhere is important. Not just, I know obviously you do have to focus on one area, but I do think it is important also just to have these kind of messages and these things represented across different types of media and conferences and things like that is important.
And like definitely holding space for these sort of discussions as well is super important. And like Emma said, representation everywhere is only going to be a positive.
Yeah, and I think we should also change this idea that maybe environmental science careers, you learn them along the way, so it takes you too long. Maybe we need to find a way of how to reach out more about the green careers and help people to be able to know about them more and get more interest in them. Because there's a very strong linkage between maybe biology with ecology, chemistry, physics. So students who are interested in that, they can actually easily move into ecology if they know that that's an option for them.
Brilliant. Well, I think we've worked through all the questions and we're coming towards the end of the session now. So I'd really like to say thank you again to everyone for participating here. It is hard to share those personal stories, but it is really important, and I'm really grateful to you all for coming here to make this happen. If you're an attendee, you will shortly be receiving a feedback form. It would be great if you could complete that, because that gives us more information on what went well, what could be improved, any ideas for future sessions. Our next topic will be announced soon, and we'd be delighted if you could join us for that. So thank you everybody. Finishing almost exactly on time, which is great. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.